Hello friends, this video on data handling part 9 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So now we will understand how do we draw a bar graph, and drawing a bar graph, choosing the scale forms the most important thing. So let's say that we are given this table where names of the students and their marks are given. So we need to draw a bar graph. So this is how the bar graph would look like. So here also, so on the x-axis it is pretty simple because we have just mentioned the names of the students, and on the y-axis we have plotted the marks. So how did we decide the scale here? Now normally we draw these graphs on a graph paper. So if you look at a graph paper, the papers are like, it consists of squares like this, and even inside the squares you have smaller squares like this. So basically in one square, so if you look at its one side, you would have 10 small squares. So that is how the bar graph paper is being made. And we draw these bar graphs on that graph paper. Okay, so how do we choose the scale? In this case, how did we choose the y-axis value? Now here, for that, what we do is we first observe the minimum value that we have and the maximum value that we have. So the minimum marks that we have is 20 and the maximum marks that we have is 52. So that means the marks of all the students lies between the range of 20 and 52. So knowing this range will give you an idea that how do you need to calibrate the y-axis. Now since you saw that all the numbers are between 20 and 52, so you thought that, okay, considering one box as 10 units, that is this one unit, this is one unit, this is another unit, this is another unit, and so on. So here we have considered one unit as 10 marks. That means if this is 0, this would be 10. So one unit represents 10 marks. So if this is 10, this would be 20. So this is one unit representing again 10. So if this is 20, this is 30, this is 40, and so on. So why did we choose this? Because we need to go only up to 52. That means we need to mark it only up to 60, because 52 would lie between 50 and 60. So 60 would mean just 6 squares. So each of these is one square. So 6 square is absolutely fine, and it can be drawn on a sheet of graph paper. So that's how we decided the scale on the y-axis. But sometimes the scenarios are a little different. So let us look at a scenario like that. So let's see, this is how a graph paper looks like. So you see here you have bigger squares like this, and then you have smaller squares inside them. So the first step for drawing a bar graph is that you draw a horizontal axis and a vertical axis. So we normally refer this horizontal axis as the x-axis and the vertical axis as the y-axis, and this point where the x-axis and the y-axis meets, it is called the origin. Now you can draw the bars both horizontally as well as vertically. That means that you can have a bar graph like this, like how you have been seeing in the last few slides, or you can also draw a graph like this. So these would be horizontal bars and these are vertical bars. So vertical bars are more common, but you can choose any of these options. But it is just that if you are choosing this option, then definitely the marks need to be along this axis. The marks need to be along the x-axis and the names of the students need to be along the y-axis. So basically you will have to interchange the two axes if you want to draw horizontal bars. But yes, you are free to draw either horizontally or vertically. That is up to you. So now that would be the first step is to draw a horizontal axis and a vertical axis. Okay, perfect. So the next step would be to look for the range of numbers to be represented. So let us say, let's take an example. So let's say that you want to represent the marks scored by students with respect to the students' names. Now, if you assume that the students' names would be along the x-axis and the marks scored will be along the y-axis. So in that case, let's say it could be Akash here, Rama here, Sahil here. So you will have names of students on this axis, and then on this axis you would have maybe the marks. So you will actually have graphs like this. So these are your vertical bars. So why are you drawing vertical bars? Because you have kept the names of the students on the y-axis. But if you want to draw horizontal bars, in that case, what you will have to do, you will have to keep marks on the x-axis and names of the students on the y-axis. Okay, so this part is clear, considering x and y-axis. Next part is choosing a scale. So how do we choose a scale? So let us take this example. Let's say this represents the number of students in different classes, like class 6, 7, 8, 9. They respectively have 20, 45, 60 and 70 students. As I mentioned before, that your first job is always to draw the horizontal and the vertical axis. So let's say this is your horizontal axis and this is your vertical axis. This is y-axis, this is x-axis and this is the origin. Now, in order to, let us also assume that on the x-axis we are going to consider class and on the y-axis we are going to consider the number of students. Now, in number of students, we will have to look at the range. So, the minimum number of student is 20 and the maximum number is 70. So, that means the range of values that you have is between 20 and 70. So, what would be a convenient scale? So, obviously, a convenient scale would be a scale of 10. That means we assume that each unit represents 10 students. So, each unit would mean each square like this. So this is one unit. So this represents 10 students. This is another unit which would represent another 10 students, which would be 20. This would be 30. This would be 40, 50, 60 and 70. So only till 70. Now here we have taken only a small section of the graph paper, but when you actually do it on a graph paper, so there it will be easy for you to mark from 0 to 70. You will be able to do that very conveniently on a sheet of paper. So this is how you choose the scale, and once you have chosen the scale, then your job is pretty simple. You just need to draw the bars corresponding to 20. Now again, when you draw the bars, let you draw them equi-spaced. That is, they should be spaced equally and their width should also be the same. Let's say this is the width that you are considering. So this would be your first bar, and this bar, which represents 20 number of students, belongs to class 6. Similarly, for class 7, the number of students are 45. So 45 would go even beyond 40. So 45 would be somewhere between 40 and 50. Right? Now, let's say we have to represent a number between 10 and 20. So between 10 and 20, you again have small boxes, right? So here 10 to 20 represents 10 students. So that means this is 10, this is 12, this is 14, this is 16, this is 18, this is 20. So basically there are 5 equal divisions. So those 10 students divided into 5 equal divisions. That means each division is for 2 students. So this represents 12 students, this represents 14, 16, 18 and 20. So in that fashion you can kind of, accurately decide where 45 would be. So 45 would be exactly midway between 40 and 50. So maybe somewhere here, so approximately. And then this bar that you get represents class 7. Similarly, class 6 would go even till 60, class 9 would go even till 70. So in this fashion, you will draw your bar graph.
Thank you. Please visit examfear.com for free quality education. You can learn with a simple 4-step learning process wherein you can watch video lessons, you can ask your questions, you can refer notes, and you can take a free online test. We have content for class 6 to 12 on physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology along with practical videos. So please subscribe to our channel for daily updates. Thank you.